Let them in.
So hit continue, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
All right, welcome everyone.
Hi.
Hello,
everybody.
This video on here.
We'll wait a few minutes until more people come in.
Hello.
Let's see if some people I know here. Hey, Adam from London, from England, I mean. Hi, Murad.
Hi, how you doing?
Hey.
Hello to all of you.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Nicholas from Penny Bank Tunes. I'm trying to put my video on. I'm not. Here it is. Okay.
Hey, Lonnie.
Nice to meet you all.
All right. This is a party.
Yeah, indeed. See Oded on. Bunch of people. Brian. Cool. Michelle, should I get started?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. So for those of you who do not know me, I'm Adam Taylor. I'm the president of APM Music. Excuse me, and also the head of the Production Music Association. And I want to welcome you all here. Thank you so much for joining us on this fascinating and important subject. It's it's critical to be able to write great music, and also to be able to the music to be able to be found in search engines. If you have all of this music and it can't be found, then what's the point, really? And so in today's world, it is very complex, and we're not only dealing with one system. If you have your own search engine, you tag to that system, of course, but a lot of people use other systems like SoundMiner, Source Audio, and Pro Tunes and other ones, Harvest, and a bunch of other platforms that seem to continually emerge. So it's a pretty challenging thing. I was saying to somebody earlier today that you can get a PhD in search, and which is not something you were able to do before. So very happy to that we can host this today, and so thank you all. I want to introduce the team from TagTeam Analysis, who are going to run the show here today. And at the end, Michelle is going to take questions. I'm not going to, unfortunately, be able to stay on for the whole thing, but we'll be on for a bit. And Michelle, if anybody has questions for me after, and if I'm not on, you can certainly have them send them to you, and you can forward them to me. Before we get started, though, I just want to encourage everybody to be a PMA member. So it's very important for us. It's not expensive, and it's a great help because we are trying to build community, we're trying to educate, we're trying to preserve the value of music. It all takes time and effort and staff and resources to do so. And so we have a real focus this year on increasing our membership of both publishers and composers. So if you are not a member, if you would please reach out to Michelle or Morgan, or go onto the website and register and pay for a membership, we would greatly appreciate it. So I would like to first introduce Marina Garza, who's the founder of TagTeam Analysis, and she has been working for many years with production music libraries. And she was a music analyst at Pandora and worked on the Music Genome Project, which was a manually human tagged system. And she gained a deep understanding of descriptive music analysis. And she has a BA in music education from Baylor, and a master's in music education jazz studies from University of North Texas. So welcome, Marina. Also want to introduce Forrest, and I'm not sure about the pronunciation of the last name.
Riga, yeah.
Riga, thank you, is TagTeam's lead developer, data scientist, and a QA specialist. And he is a graduate of UC Berkeley with degrees in music and cognitive science. And his background includes Excel native interface design for music libraries, workflow optimization, custom UI design, systems architecture, and has a specialty in some of the other aggregator systems that are available in the marketplace, including Source Audio, SoundMiner, Pro Tunes, and others, other contemporary music platforms. So welcome to both of you. Thank you so much. Thanks to everybody for joining, and I am going to turn it over to Marina.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming and joining on this presentation that I'm going to give. I'm going to show you guys just some basic and really best keyword practices for your libraries. I know probably everyone's in a lot of different situations with their libraries. Some may have small libraries, or their libraries are growing, or have a larger library and maybe need some assistance and help with keyword structuring based on your library and the types of music that you are representing. So I'm going to do a screen share. And I'm going to do, here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of break this down into three aspects of keywording. I'm going to start with discussing the standard descriptive keyword fields, which probably most of you might know already based on your spreadsheet work. And then we're going to talk about building a keyword structure for your library, and then some best keyword practices. So here what we have is basically the standard descriptive keyword fields that you're going to see in a spreadsheet. And I highlighted in yellow the ones we're going to discuss, and the ones in gray are also things that you might see, or fields that you might see on your spreadsheets. So the yellow ones are very important. Genre is also considered category. You'll see that subgenre, subcategories, styles, music for usage and usage industry keywords, moods, vocals, and instrumentation. So those are kind of like the meat of the descriptive fields and the descriptive metadata that we'll be discussing. Sound alikes also, I put these in gray areas because I think that they are important, but probably not really something that I want to like kind of go into at this point. I think there's a lot of really good information for the yellow tags at this point. So you want to talk about how to build a keyword structure for your library. And so I categorize these in three different sections. And it's really kind of based on what your library, the compositional dominance of your library is. So if you're like basically represent pop, rock, folk, electronic, indie, there's some actual focal points to get started on building a taxonomy. Same with cinematic, and the same with sound design and trailer at the end there. So what I wanted to do is kind of just structure it based on like some focal points to try to get your keywords, try to get your list of keywords together. So for example, if you represent a lot of pop or rock, and you might want to find some really good keywords that really depict the lyrical themes of your tracks. And also your vocals, all of the details regarding your vocal instrumentation, like male lead vocals, female lead vocals, duet, all of those really detailed levels of how you would, categorize or describe vocal music. And then energy and intensity, which I think is really important too, because, putting in keywords that really depict the energy level of a song is important, and the intensity level, whether it's, upbeat, or whether it's carefree, or, relaxing types of keywords are really important. And also sound alikes. When it comes to pop and rock, sound alikes can actually be very helpful, but it's also how you utilize this field, because a lot of times people will use this in-house and use it, within their library to find things, instead of like actually putting it out on the website or putting it out in the public eye, because a lot of times, and what I've heard, and probably many of you've heard, that there could be copyright issues with that. And then also sonority. I like the word sonority because I think it really applies to everything in a way that you can structure your library. If you want to structure it more so within these three elements of sonority, which is acoustic, electric, and synthetic. So like acoustic, maybe more like folk and indie, and all of the ones that have the quality of just really the acoustic levels. And then electric, more like rock, electric guitar, keyboards in those sense. And then synthetic, really just electronic music, if it's dubstep or trap, or all those elements that involves the synthetic sonority. And then moving on to the cinematic, drama, and orchestral, any types of cinematic music, I would really kind of try to have a really good taxonomy of instrumentation, because you're dealing with a lot of different types of orchestral pieces, whether it's epic or if it's, you know, small string work. You're dealing with some hybrid types of instrumentation. I think that is really important to have in your library. I mean, have in your structure. The next thing is tension level. I think tension level is so important because you can definitely group your tracks based on tension, whether it's high tension or if it's, you know, light tension, or if it's ambient, or, you know, tension levels, I feel is very important. And then also hybrid forms, because a lot of times cinematic or dramatic tracks will have a orchestral hybrid sense to them. They'll have an underlying maybe electronic sonority, or they'll have rock elements, you name it. So it can be a mixture of orchestral and other types of elements that are important to structure your library with and organize. And then also styles, which styles to me is also across the board because it is an industry usage field, but also with the cinematic and drama and orchestral types of tracks, it's really good to have a nice library of style tags that really reflect how the music can be used in production scenarios and TV and film, or in streaming or any of that. So those are important. Sound design, trailer, and Foley FX. There are libraries out there that are just exclusive to sound design. So it's so important that you kind of like really hone in on how you can structure your library when it comes to that aspect. So sound design, instrumentation, I think is like its own little animal. There's so many different types of sound design instruments that are, you know, important to have in your library or in your taxonomy, like, you know, like synth risers or impacts and hits, atmospheres, drones, etc. Also categories, really kind of like organizing your library within the category of your drones. Have a drones folder, have an atmosphere folder, impacts, risers, etc. And then form I think is really kind of more related to trailer music, like the intros, the outros, the sections of trailer music that, you know, you would want to organize in a certain fashion, I think is important. And then also textures again is one of those across the board really important. So people can find your music based on the feel, right? How does it feel, and how does it look like in your mind? Is it gritty? Is it soft? Is it smooth? Is it punchy? Those kind of texture tags I think are very, very important. And then moving forward, we're going to be talking about the best keyword practices. So using cohesive keywords for album organization, providing hierarchies of keywords, and then also classifying your styles and your genres. So let's go to the first point, using cohesive keywords for your album. You want to, you know, like, you know, everybody has their library organized differently, some in albums and based on artists or composers. There's some elements about album organization, I think, that are really helpful when it comes to searching. And one is that you want to keep same mood, texture, and style tags when applicable, and add additional tags when appropriate. So you can keep all of those tracks within the album kind of like close together as a family. Another thing is using the same instrumentation when applicable, with additional instrumentation when the featured instruments are different. So yeah, having a really good library of instrumentation, and it really just when listening to a lot of music, when you're listening for instrumentation, it's really trying to extract the instruments that carry the melody. So the melodic themes are important, and also the instruments that are really high in the mix. So those things are really important to be pulled out when you're listening, or, you know, when you're setting up your albums. Another one is using the same genre or similar subgenres. I mean, I think this is kind of one of the glue parts of an album, is that your genre most of the time is going to be the same. Maybe your subgenres are different, but I think it's good practice to try to keep an album within, you know, in the same genre if at all possible. Using different tracks to bring out unique qualities. And each track while keeping a general framework. So like pulling and extracting all of the unique nuances of each track within an album is really important. And then also providing an album's description that ties in all the featured attributes. So an album description that ties in the genre, the textures, the instrumentation, the mood, the feel, that really just kind of encompasses the whole album. I think those are all kind of really key points for good keyword practicing within an album. Another thing, providing a hierarchy of keywords. So organize your keyword structure for efficiency. Place genre tags with related sub-genre tags. So, I mean, and this is really just depending on how you tag your music already and what you're looking at. If you're looking at a taxonomy while you're tagging, or if you're just tagging something and you're just thinking out of the blue what the tags are. But I think for organization and consistency across the board, it's so important to have your genres and your prospective subgenres together. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to use the same subgenres that go with the genre, but at least you have a framework of what you're looking at. And also creating a hierarchical structure for specific categories or styles. So depending on what you decide is your genre, having a filter that filters all of the aspects for your cinematic tracks, for your drama tracks, for your sound design tracks, etc. Here's just an example of a hierarchical approach. So let's say the top line is your genres for your library and how you can filter your tracks within these folders: action, adventure, and horror within cinematic. Same with drama: dark, mysterious, heartfelt, uplifting, and sad, all mood related with the drama tracks to try to really kind of just organize them correctly. And then dramedy as well, humorous. If you have a lot of comical tracks that have dramedy elements, have a folder for it. Same with sneaky, spy, investigative, detective types of tracks. And then children animation as well, anything that sounds like it would be animated. Sound design as well. We talked about this previously: atmospheres, hits, impacts, blasts, and risers. You know, it's really good to have things organized so you can find them quickly. Okay, and the next thing is classifying your styles and your genres. I think, you know, from working with so many clients and so many different taxonomies, I always see that the mixtures of genres and styles can be somewhat confusing. Like, when do you use it as a style? Do you use it as a style, or do you use it as a genre? And so there's kind of like two components to that. It just depends on really what your library is about. And then the second thing is really just honing in on what is a style and what is a genre. So here's some kind of steps to do this. So I would create a list of style tags. Just find as many music industry usage tags that are out there and just make a list. And the same with your genres. And then you want to set up some guidelines for what makes a genre and what makes a style. And so you want to kind of ask these questions for style tags. Does the tag have the flexibility to be grouped with different genres or categories? So is it flexible? Or if it's a genre tag, does it have fixed qualities? Meaning it's like, you know what a rock song is, what the characteristics of a rock song is, what the characteristics of a trap song is. So there's some fixed qualities with those types of genres. So here we have, I just kind of made this list just to kind of show you how you would want to perceive what a genre category is, what a subgenre is, and then what a style is. And I kept the two questions above to ask. So the tags that are in bold are what I would consider genres, or the main categories, the very general. The ones that are just regular, that aren't bold-faced, those are what we could consider subgenre, or either we can consider them genres or subgenres. So they're kind of like a little bit malleable there. And then the ones that are very gray those are what I would consider style tags, because they're the ones that are the most flexible. They're the ones that you could use with any of the bold-faced tags. So trailer, for example, you could use fantasy, you could use epic, you could use suspense and horror. you could use any of pretty much almost tension. You can use pretty much almost any of the gray areaed ones to fit that. And then here's just kind of a breakdown of how you would organize for your categories. For example, if you use the term score as a very generally related genre to a lot of different subcategories that kind of fit this, you can have your subcategory as cinematic. And then if you look over to styles, it's all in gray. The one thing that you'll notice, and this is what ties in with what I was saying earlier, is that those tags are all flexible to the subcategories and the categories. Action sports could be used as a rock genre. Action sports could also be used as a trap subgenre or an electronic genre. So they're very flexible. So that's kind of how I would start, like really looking at how I would build a taxonomy for my library, is how I can set up these tags in a organizational way, but also in a way that people can find and do some searches and actually find things that fit these actual tags. So yeah, so that's kind of like what I wanted to present to you. And I think I just, just some advice for some of you that may, are starting with a small amount of tracks, and then you're building your library, is that to really have a real good structure of keywords is so important. And then also, like, how you're doing it. Like, are you the one that's actually tagging the music, or do you have an assistant that's doing the tagging? But having a structure is so important because it's going to guide them to make certain decisions. And the thing about music is that we all know it's just so subjective. So what I might consider, is road trip, somebody else is going to consider something else. So trying to have some sense of consistency across the board is starting with the structure, and then starting with guidelines to help whoever's tagging the music stay on track with certain elemental parts of this. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to present. If you guys are interested, I can always send this PDF to you if you want, if you find it helpful. And then what I'd like to do is kind of send the second half of the presentation over to my assistant, Forrest.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm gonna cancel your screen share real quick, Marina.
Thank you. Wait, I got it. Wait.
I think I can get it from you.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, everyone, hear me okay? Okay, great. I'm gonna assume that was a yes. Yeah, Marina, I really liked your last point there about we obviously on this call we have, I think, 140 people and counting. We have a lot of people at different levels, different sizes, different areas of expertise, and I feel like right now it really is the Wild West in terms of search and optimization for this kind of stuff. Whether you're going with an approach where you're trying to use sonic search on your entire library, or you're, a lot of the people we work with are small boutique libraries who want to have a lot of intimate control over how their music is searched and received. And also make sure that as you are smaller and get larger, you're able to make sure all that hard work you've done understanding your own library maps appropriately to other distributors and other stuff like that. I think part of why we've stuck with a tagging centric approach is because it's the easiest way, hands down, to get a firm understanding of how you're describing your library, especially if you put any amount of QA or time into defining how your songs sound, like all the stuff Marina's talked about of having a customized taxonomy so that you are really optimizing based on what's unique about you. Because, who knows where the technology is going to be in 5-10 years, but at least having the first step understood of like, where are we? What is our library? What does it mean to us? What are we trying to make special about that? So yeah, our company tries to offer as many tools as we can to empower people to do that, because we are all on different technical levels. We are all at different places in this industry. So I laid out just a couple things here. I want to talk a little bit about how we're conceptualizing our metadata. Also just some, depending on, this will be redundant for some people and new for some people, just some basic QA things you can do that help keep that consistency in place and keep things from running away to the point where you don't even know what's in your library anymore, which isn't useful for anyone. We go into a little bit as well about some of our own systems that we've developed over the years, really just pragmatically to help us with what we do, along with some tips and tricks again for sub-publishers and things like that. And then I just have a little note, my own sort of personal thoughts on machine learning, and I'm sure there will be more, and maybe that'll be a good way to kick off the Q&A at the end. But just talking about the role of machine learning in this space and what we think about that. So anyway, about me, yeah. So like Adam said, people can get PhDs in search. I do not have a PhD in search. Marina actually found me because I was a musician, and I started working for TagTeam as an analyst. I do have a background in data science. I started in a neuroscience lab at Berkeley. And so far through my career, I've worked also as an audio engineer and worked for composers. And truthfully, I think having those hybrid backgrounds has helped me conceptualize this problem the way maybe a data scientist, or depending on the data scientist, would or wouldn't. But point being, you need to have sort of a foot in both lands here, because we are doing very subjective work at the end of the day, and it's about building stuff that works for us specifically. So a distinction as I was sort of brainstorming about this, came up with is there's a distinction between hard data and human data, and it's just important to get both right. It's just important to make sure that all of your ISRCs, all your PRO data, all of that basic spreadsheet line by line stuff is matched properly and going to the right places, as it is to make sure that your human data, not just the tags on the spreadsheet, but how those tags get in there and what the tags actually mean. What encapsulates essentially your music, making sure that that is as accurate as possible as well. And the thing is, you have to QA them separately in different ways, because the tags themselves are hard data. They need to be lined up to the right tracks and assigned to the right places and done the right way. That's Excel stuff or whatever program you're using to manage your database. That's pretty simple, but also making sure that they're right in the first place requires some other things. So QA tips, and this is going to be basics for some people and less so for other people. Rely on your eyes as little as possible, especially if you're just getting started and putting together your own spreadsheets, your own for Source Audio or for Harvest or whoever else you're working for. Don't be in the habit of copy pasting things, and don't be in the habit of relying your eyes to catch all the errors, because as a bare minimum, you should be making sure your data is getting to the right place. Like, that's as far as basic search optimization. You want to make sure those tags are going to the right tracks. I have a little demo put together here of some dummy data. Here, for example, is a bunch of tracks I have of, you can see there's fulls and alts. And it's sort of common practice for a lot of libraries to, if you have a lot of alts or stems mixed in with your regular tracks, to copy the metadata down. So like, for example, let's say you've tagged a couple tracks. But as you can see, this is a spreadsheet of 5,000 tracks. And you do not want to have to go through like this and eyeball. Again, it should be pretty simple why that would be a problem. I've put together another sheet here, but basically a first step, here's just like a quick tip I would say, especially if you're dealing with Source, which has, if you've got nesting, you've already got, or any other distributors that use nesting as well, you've already got a means for identifying where your stems point to. So those stems point to this full mix. You could very easily create what I would call a lookup title of essentially a master list of where the metadata should be coming from. And then when you've got your fulls, and if you've got a solid, you'll see very quickly why the system I'm doing right now breaks down. But if I've got a way of extracting your full mixes from your list. And let's see if my laptop can handle it. You could very easily create. Very easily create a list of just your main tracks. And once you have that together, put together a way of pulling back that data across all of these. And this is essentially creating a master repository for this information, and everything else can pull from there. So that if ever down the road you need to change metadata for one track or anything, you can go back to the main source of it and keep it intact. What I would do with that lookup title thing right there is put in a quick VLOOKUP formula, which looks up via a unique identifier, the source ID. And as you can already see, there's stuff starting to break down, and I've put together here. This right here, you can see I've marked in red as well, so I know not to upload that to source. But you can then use VLOOKUPs as well to pull all of your metadata together automatically. And most importantly, it's a super flimsy formula. As you can, it's not very complicated getting this VLOOKUP together. And the point is that it will break if it sees anything that isn't the way it's supposed to be. For example, when I did my quick down and dirty search to get all my full main mixes, it left out this whole set of cues that definitely needs to be tagged and is definitely important. And we don't have a main track for that. And as a result, you can see here, we're getting errors for that because we don't have it. So that's a real quick way of just like, if you were copy pasting, you might not notice that kind of thing, or it might be something that's you find out down the line. Here's another example. Because we use VLOOKUP formulas instead of copy pasting in, where we notice that here's a place where someone obviously either forgot to tag this or something got deleted. And just to show you, if these were not there, if these weren't formulas, this would probably be invisible to the human eye. This is, again, just sort of basic spreadsheet maintenance stuff. But the takeaway essentially is like, if you're going to build a system to help you with wherever you're at, whatever technical skill you have, you want it to be a system that breaks and one that saves you time as much as it informs you about ways that things aren't expecting. And that's sort of the beauty of building automation and other time savers into your workflows. It doesn't just save you time, it shows you the ways that you haven't conceptualized your library yet. And 9 times out of 10, when I'm helping QA other people's libraries, is using VLOOKUPs and other things, you can find all kinds of inconsistencies, because that's the name of the game when we're dealing with lots of different composers or publishers or whoever else. There's going to be stuff out of place, and you just have to know how to find it. Yeah, so that's a pretty basic thing there. Going forward, though, and some of the more interesting part, which is, I think, what makes what Marina and I do more interesting, is we deal with the human side of it. And like I said, our background has always been tagging tracks by ear, having actual humans listen to the tracks. That's not necessarily the only thing we ever hope to do or are ever working on, but point being, it does give you, it has, I think, historically given us a bit of an edge, because we can guarantee with the right kinds of QA that we're putting good tags on the tracks, because we have a lot of experience with this. But as a result, if you're tagging lots of tracks, if you yourself are a library and you're planning on tagging, thousands or tens of thousands of tracks, you're going to encounter human errors that have to be, I sounded like Hal from 2001 there for a second when I said human error, but you have to account for the same kinds of things, the same kind of human things that would pop up. So you deal with fatigue, you deal with burnout, you deal with inconsistency between analysts, and you can deal with all those problems essentially the same way you would dealing with a spreadsheet in a way, just in that you can identify the problem and try and solve it. It's the same with anything. So one thing we started doing earlier on was we broke up tasks by metadata type. So we came up with some people who are really good at dealing with genres and subgenres, and we're really up to date on what's going on with music trends and stuff like that, and could suggest taxonomy changes for us when new tags like, I mean, since we've been around, trap has exploded, for example, and we, caught on pretty quickly, like, yeah, this should definitely be a tag. This is a very specific style that should be added in. It gave us the flexibility to modify our taxonomy, and also gave us the ability to have specialists for each individual thing. And this obviously isn't available for everyone, but it's one way of breaking down the friction of tagging so many tracks. Same with UI and automation. I have might be a little embarrassing, but I have an early version of what we called the manual. And it's called the manual because I literally designed it inside of the manual of taxonomy that we had. It was just a simple point and click interface. And lots of people do this stuff in FileMaker Pro too, which a lot of people like. And it started with point and click, and then eventually started having auto tagging features so that we could look up different things and have suggested tags. Down here, we even had a hilarious color-coded sentence builder kind of thing, where you could click on suggested tracks, populate different fields. Anyway, point being, we didn't set out to build a perfect AI generated tagging modeled thing. It was really just a step-by-step process of, okay, what can we improve about that? I was an analyst at the time when I started designing this kind of thing. Where's the friction? Where are we going to get burned out? And what could make it that much easier for us? And like I said, there's so much tech and so much stuff going on, and it can be a lot to keep track of. I think focusing on what makes your library special and the resources directly available to you are going to give you the best answer for how you can tackle this kind of stuff. And you don't have to be a genius to do it. You don't have to be a really good developer or anything. Really, you can, I think, taking the first step as a library to identify where your strengths are and how to go forward is just probably the best way you can do that. A couple other tricks for QA. You can just give your analysts variety so they're not tagging. It's counterintuitive to the last thing of separating people by specialty, but give them a chance to try out different types of music, see what they like, see what works for them. If you have a big deadline with a lot of tracks, make sure you're setting up time management effectively so people know you can't tag eight hours straight of tagging on the last day just to get it done. Make sure people have time to rest and stuff like that. It seems like simple things, but you sort of have to break it down bit by bit depending on what you're dealing with. And also making sure you have one authoritative source of answers. And when you're spot checking these things, making sure that you have one consistent approach. And I would say, going in reverse order a little bit on that last point, we've had Marina. Marina's been working, she started at Pandora and also has just been working actually tagging for a long time with this stuff. And so a lot of our consistency, I think, comes from the fact that we have a authoritative way of doing this, which when applied to your own library is going to give you the kind of consistency that makes things feel better when you're trying to search for these things. I think I went through a lot of these already. Yeah, I showed you the, I think I jumped ahead, but we've gone into more predictive text kind of stuff and more advanced algorithms as time has gone on. But point being, we didn't wake up and do that one day. It all happened as a result of us trying to break down, breaking down complicated problems can be as simple as just taking the simplest part first. And we're excited for what could come next. So this is going to get into another sort of like demo territory, but obviously a lot of us deal with multiple sub-publishers and have to deliver our data in multiple formats and things like that. Some of this is just pretty simple hard data problems of making sure spreadsheets are going to the right places. So for example, back here, don't need to save any of that. Let's say we've got a full setup here. Let's say we've QA'd this actually and gone through and made sure we're all lined up. I would, in this case, if I were delivering to ProTunes as one of the distributors we work with a lot, I would create an entire mirrored sheet. Here is a template I made based off of ProTunes that essentially, because I have it separate, it mirrors with formulas this entire sheet I've made. And we're using source here, but you could do it in any kind of format. If you have at the beginning of any project, if you're doing multiple quarterly releases or anything like that, you could start with one definitive Bible for that particular set of metadata for that that release, and then just quickly put together a template that mirrors all that information. And if it has, for example, the nesting on Pro Tunes works differently than source audio. So making sure that these formulas are working right. Don't look at that mess of a formula. But also, if you're dealing with these spreadsheets and taking a little bit of time, instead of last minute just copy pasting things in, which is rife with error and other things, it also gives you a chance to try and see where the people who are designing these websites, where their minds are at and where their data. I think another distributor we work with is Cadenza Box, and they have a whole sort of interesting hierarchy system they're trying to roll out with their tags, which are simultaneously links subsidiary tags like subgenres and sub-subgenres all the way up to genres, but also makes them independently searchable. So that sort of gives you your first window as to where these different sub-publishers are trying to push, and gives you a chance to like not only save yourself a lot of time, but helps you sort of understand where they're coming from. Specifically as well, oh, I forgot to mention. Oh yeah, I forgot on the last thing, sorry. I breezed right past this. We do not use that that old Excel manual anymore. We use a new platform we have online, a lot more robust, but Tune Tagger is the one we use. Completely forgot to mention that, but that's our newer system that does not have bright rainbow colors all over it. I sort of wish it did sometimes, but yeah, similar. Here's the Pro Tunes platform as well. Like you can see here, and this is part of why it's important to, as you're starting to work with new sub-publishers, reach out to them. See, a lot of times the people working on these projects are really excited about what they're doing on the tech side of things, and want to explore it and talk about it and make sure people are using it, because it's their babies, essentially their ideas that they want to get off the ground. They're often very excited to explain how best to utilize. And it really is different because a lot of these people are on the search side trying to maximize the SEO on these kinds of things. And that will be different with every single person you're working with. So for example, I know that Pro Tunes deals a lot with their sonic search. That's their main thing, which is part of why they have sort of a set taxonomy here for people who do want to click on these things. This is different than our taxonomy, for example. So you can search for rock, which we do have, but not all of these tags line up with our tags. This is where you get more into what I would call a human data problem of even if your tags are right for your track and put in the right way, they're not translating effectively to a different platform. They're not going to be, I think the analytics on how many people actually use the genre subgenre things here, I mean, are part of why they're not super prioritizing, making sure people tag. They have a whole sonic search they're more interested in. But for the people who do want to click through and have these things show up, if you've got not something called stadium rock, but something that you would be fit perfectly in that category, you do have to sort of, and this is sort of higher level, harder stuff to tackle, but it's because you're translating your language into another person's language. And that's a human problem of making sure you're understood essentially in the way that you've worked out to map out your library. So we've actually built a tool, just because we work with Pro Tunes a lot, that helps map that. So if we've got our TTA taxonomy we're using for whoever's library, we have a tool as well that can populate based on our own tags, these same kind of things. And that's just our approach of like, it doesn't matter if our spreadsheets and lines are all in the right place. It's a matter of making sure that our tags work on their system. And that's going to be different for everyone. There are lots and lots of distributors and lots of different libraries with different approaches. And so very much important to be reaching out and also working to understand how your stuff is coming across online. If you are in the do it all yourself, take your own initiative kind of thing, which I think is a great way to be. Last but not least, we just wanted to talk, just to open the can of worms, I guess, of machine learning and where we see the future for this stuff. Like I said, we've continue and have always tagged everything by ear, which I think has given us a lot of consistency and a lot of hands-on understanding of how people are hearing things and how to make stuff put together well. But we also get a lot of people who know that about us and ask us like, well, what about machine learning? Are you going to be out of a job in 5 years? Like, what do you think? And do you see that as a threat to our business model? And I'd say absolutely not. I'd say it sounds really useful, frankly. If we could have an algorithm that took the place of that person back in that I mentioned earlier, the person doing the genres and subgenres, if we had someone who could do that consistently, or an algorithm that could do that consistently, that would be a great help to us and allow us to focus on a lot of the other specific things that make the individual tracks. If we can cut out, it's about the same in my mind as automating away, copy pasting things. The problem is it's really hard to do consistently, and it's really hard to based on the many different libraries people are using for not music libraries, but audio factor analysis libraries. It's really hard to get it right, and hard to get it right in a way that where you know it's wrong. So similar to what I said earlier, like you need a system that you know when it's broken. And so as far as what we would say is like would probably be essential if you're going based on a tag-based approach here, something that would work with our models is it needs to be either super high accuracy or have some way of knowing when it's not confident. So having a confidence rating would be really important. Also needs to be flexible to changing trends. Just because you build a model of rock music at one point in time doesn't mean that in 10 years it's going to be exactly the same. And it may think it's perfectly right. So there's just a lot of pitfalls that make us wary of jumping too quickly onto something like that, because consistency and understanding of what we're doing is pretty important. A last thought that I sort of had too was, as we all know, in the age of Google and search and everything, I would hopefully, and as we become more reliant on AI and search and stuff like that, I would hope that whatever system we're building to help us actually aids our exploration and doesn't just go based on trends, doesn't just go based, I mean, we're in a highly creative industry, one where I think all of us would probably want to identify someone who thinks a little different from everyone else. And the nice thing about a tag-based approach is you can sort of see, it's not always true, but you have a lot more control over what words are pulling up what. So if you have tracks that are identified based on traits, and Marina broke down really well, I think, a lot of the different ways you can think about those traits in a track and what's important. If you have a way of doing that, that aids exploration, that gives you a human understanding of what you're searching for, as opposed to a predictive algorithm just feeds you what it thinks you should want. And who knows, maybe a predictive algorithm that's really good will help a lot of people, but I would hope that whatever we start working on actually gives us more of a chance to be creative and empowers us to have connection with the music, as opposed to trying to build its own patterns out of the noise. So with that, I think that's about all I have to say. We have, I think, some time for Q&A though, so I'm just going to stop screen sharing for a sec here.
Thanks for that, Forrest. I'm gonna jump in. And first of all, I wanted to say, like, saw the great response for the PDF that Marina offered. So we'll make sure to email that to everyone who is in the Zoom. We have your emails through the RSVP, so we'll send that out after this. And I wanted to jump back to a question that we got from Marette early on. She was asking Marina, could you provide an example of sound alikes and metadata without creating copyright issues?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not so certain. I would say the best practice regarding copyright issues would be to not have it out, in the public eye. I would use it internally. So I'm not so sure if there's like any artists that you could put out there that, have, what do you call it? The domain immunity or whatnot. So I really don't know. I think the best thing would be to keep it really on the down low. I wouldn't put it out there for the public to see.
I think it's even a gray area too if you're using it for your internal search at all, like building relevance between tracks. I think I've heard, I'm not a specialist on this kind of thing, but I've heard before that that can even be suspect or problematic. So some people don't want them anywhere near their library for that reason.
All right, we got one from Toby saying, how do you track titles related to tagging practices and taxonomies? Are titles becoming less and less important, for example? And do you see big data frameworks becoming more important or useful? So that's kind of a loaded question.
I would say that track titling is an art within itself, but I think it should in somewhat reflect and mirror the tags that you use on that track. We do a lot of track titling. We call it a title builder, that we kind of like generate a lot of adjectives and synonyms and pronouns and whatnot to actually build a title while we're listening to the music. And we try to like tie in what we're already tagging for that track to have some of the same, the same approach and ideas of how you would title that song. So yeah, so I find that titling itself it's kind of a beast. It's a lot of work, but I think it's very vital as well, because it's really what people are seeing up front before they even go into moods and styles and whatnot. You've got your title of your track. So yeah, I think it really should tie in a lot with what it's about in a lot of ways.
Right. We had kind of a general question of how do you match styles to genres and tagging? I don't know if you want to dive into that a little bit.
I would say it really is just based on really knowing your library, really understanding your tracks and how you can group them together. So, I mean, there's many approaches, but I really do feel like with what I showed is a very small sample of what I consider really prevalent categories as to really prevalent styles, where there's really, that style should never be a genre, because it reflects too many different arrays of genres already. So I mean, for me, like, and how my approach to tagging is really based on having a really good solid categories, and then really just detailing it in the subcategory division. And then with those style tags, because they are so flexible, you can use them with any of these, pretty much any of these categories and subcategories. And so I think it's better to look at it, as far as the approach works for me, it's better to look at it in the sense of having categories and subcategories. There's really what you kind of like, you're looking at, and then use the style tags to add to those categories. I mean, this is kind of an approach of how I organize music. But if you do, here's another thing. If you do have a library that's really specific to something like trailers or, cinematic tracks, then you a little bit more flexibility to maybe have an action sports. I mean, if you're like Fox News Sports, and everything is really geared towards sports, then maybe you can have genres that are action sports and extreme sports and for basketball and, that kind of thing.
We did have another question asking about searching for performers on tracks. Do you guys work in that at all? And do you have any tips on how to tag that?
Searching for performers on the, that would be more along the lines with the other types of metadata that's out there that really is not included in the types of tagging that I'm doing. Maybe it's the composer information, all of I don't know, all of the PRO kind of information. It might line up there.
Yeah, we do more with the descriptive stuff, I'd say. Yeah.
That's for another Academy session.
Yeah.
Another question from Simon. How do you feel about the importance of verbal description and quote free keywords as addition to the taxonomy you presented?
Yeah, that's probably one thing I didn't touch on, but you see it all the time, is the keyword field in these spreadsheets. And I think that is a place that you can have free keywords, and it's fine to have like a section of just free keywords, but I really think you should tie it in with the structure as well.
I would say also don't use it as an excuse to clutter up your really good taxonomy that you've put together too. A lot of search engines automatically diversify some of your tags. Like, so if you've got one clean set of mood tags, for example, they'll already put in extra tenses and other things like that too. So you don't have to worry about, depends who you're working with, but I would say, if you're going to do it for a good reason. And if it should be a taxonomy where it's just working into your taxonomy, so you have more control and understanding of the scope of your library.
All right. Another one from Mike. He's wondering, how do you anticipate and account for field character limits in different systems? You gave an example. It's possible in SoundMiner to edit your fields .lua text for 1 to 2,000 characters or more in descriptors. So yeah, if you could discuss that.
Yeah, that's something we've sort of just sort of jiggled into place, sort of the sweet spot of where we, Pro Tunes, for example, also their descriptions are 75 characters. So in that case, often if we're working with someone who knows they want to work with Pro Tunes, we just make sure that we do descriptions that are under 75. I didn't know that about SoundMiner, that you could edit it. I know that they have that preference where you can bump it up to, I think, 512, which so far it hasn't given us any issues. But truthfully, we just do a lot of testing and making sure that when we're uploading to these different people, different distributors, things look the way they want them to. So trying to keep things in the reins there as much as possible.
I think we'll wrap it up with this last question since we're getting close to our hour mark. This is from James. How important do you find track descriptions in relation to searches?
Big time sink. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it depends on your again, depends on the distributor, whether or not they're actually using that information for search related reasons. But it's also a matter of if your thing is showing up in a search result, and let's say it's 3 down and it has a really clean, succinct description right there. That's another way of optimizing. Like, it's not necessarily SEO the same way having good taxonomy and tags is, but it's an overall presentation thing that can help a lot if it's good, if it's a quality thing. And so if you've gone through your resources and realize you do not have the time to do that, it's probably better to optimize for other stuff. But if you can, it will probably just overall help you.
Yeah, I have to agree that I think getting the actual keywords together is so much more important than the actual track description, but it also depends on the sub-publishers that you're working with and how it's presented on their platform. So if a track description, and if you see that everyone's got them, then I think it could be crucial based on who, where your music is being set up with, hosted with. We do it quite a lot, and we do have a lot of requests for sentence descriptions on my end. So just letting you know that we definitely do them. We have a definite systematic approach to just descriptions. So we don't do all of it by hand. Like, we don't have a handwriting approach to each description. We have a very formulaic setup for our sentences that are aligned with lots of different synonyms and moods and instrumentation. But we do not sit and write like an editorial. That would take forever. I mean, but that is something I think that, people with their own libraries, that they have a more of an intimate relationship with their music, that they would be the better person to build those descriptions. They understand their story more than like someone that, like I would see it more on the level of what mood it evokes, what are the featured instruments, and that would probably be, kind of in what the subgenre might be on the song. Whereas I think the artists themselves would have a much better insight on a description. And maybe that would be a good place to have more of the creative venture when tagging a track at that level.
All right, well, I think we're gonna wrap up on questions, but if anyone else has some that we didn't address, feel free to email me. It's just my name, Michelle@pmamusic.com, and we can get you the right answers to your questions. And also keep an eye out for your email. We'll be sending that PDF. So of course, huge thank you to Marina and Forrest who shared their expertise, super insightful. And thanks to everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, Michelle, too, for hosting.
Yeah, no
thank
problem.
you. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, everyone have a great day.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.